Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I'd look to drop this week. The first guy, Segura of the Philadelphia Phillies. Segura, he was having a great season here for a Philly team that's obviously been underwhelming this season, and fired Joe Girardi late last week. So on the season here for Segura, 6 home runs, 19 RBIs, 22 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, 275 average and a 324 on base. But right now, Segura, he's out 10 to 12 weeks here with a finger injury. And I think that's a long time to stash a guy like Segura, who's a solid player, but obviously he's not a fantasy superstar here. So right now, I think he's droppable. He's been dropped in about 20% of fantasy leagues over the last week and a half here since he went down. And the last few games before he went down, May 25th at Atlanta, 2 for 5, a run and a rib. May 26th, Atlanta, 0 for 4. May 27th at the Mets, 0 for 3 with an RBI. May 28th at the Mets, 0 for 4. May 29th at the Mets, 2 for 4 with 2 stolen bases. May 30th versus San Francisco, 0 for 4. May 31st versus the Giants, 1 for 3 with a run in that one. So right here, 10, 12 weeks, that's going to take you just about to September here, and there's no reason to really hold on to Segura. And in all my leagues, he's already been dropped. And 10 and 12 team leagues, owners could cut him loose here. And then when he comes back, or close to he comes back, then you stash him. But there's no reason to hold on to him to 2 to 3 months here on your injured list. The next guy I would look to drop this week's Keibert Ruiz of the Washington Nationals. So Keibert Ruiz, the prize prospect, him and Josiah Gray. And that at the deadline with Scherzer and Turner going to the Dodgers. But so far, I haven't seen much out of Ruiz here. And he's owned in way too many fantasy leagues, in my opinion, at 74% on the season. 1 home run, 12 RBIs, 15 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 255 average, and a 327 on base. So his on base is pretty solid. And he don't strike out a lot, which is good as well. Only 17 strikeouts in 153 at-bats, but he pretty much hasn't done anything. And in the last 2 weeks here, he's only hitting 143. He's not showing power. He's not driving runs in. I know catch is a weak position, but I wouldn't hold on to Ruiz, even though he's a blue chipper prospect, supposedly here. And he's obviously going to get an everyday opportunity for this rebuilding national team. May 28th versus the Rockies, 1 for 4. May 30th at the Mets, 1 for 4 with a run. May 31st at the Mets, 0 for 3. June 1st at the Mets, 0 for 1. June 2nd at the Reds, 0 for 4. June 4th at the Reds, 0 for 4. June 5th at the Reds in that one, 0 for 2 with a stolen base. So right here, he's failed to get a hit in the last 6 games here is Keibert Ruiz. And I think he's an easy drop. Yeah, no doubt about it. He could get things going and turn things around. But right now, if you're down in the standings and you need some help at catcher or a guy who could at least put up some decent stats, I think right now would be the time to just drop him. And if he gets going, then you go out there and try to get him. But he hasn't done anything this season here to make me think that he'll really pick things up and figure it out this season. The next guy is William Contreras of the Atlanta Braves. So William Contreras, the problem with him is he's not going to be playing every day for this Brave team. They tried him in the outfield a few games. Obviously, it didn't go as planned. And it's a couple times at DH as well, but obviously only a couple days a week Darno's at a catcher. And they're paying him the big bucks, so they're not going to bench Darno. On the season for Contreras, 7 home runs, 15 RBIs, 14 runs scored, 292 average, and a 378 on-base percentage, and only 72 at-bats, so the power is definitely impressive for him. But like I said, there's not an everyday spot here, even with the DH. I think with Michael Harris getting called up, the Braves' top prospect last week, that definitely don't help Contreras being every day in the lineup as a DH here, with the Braves trying to get more speed in the lineup and stuff. And it's worked over the last few games with them winning a lot here is Atlanta. So the last few games here for Contreras, May 30th at Arizona, 0 for 1. The 31st he didn't play. June 1st at Arizona, 3 for 5 with an RBI. June 2nd and 3rd he sat out. June 4th at the Rockies, 1 for 4 with a run and a rib. And June 5th at the Rockies, 1 for 5. So right here, it would be great if Contreras played every day for this Atlanta Brave team, because obviously he's a good hitter and he's just like his brother. That's going to show power and a line drive hitter. But right now, he's not getting the everyday opportunity. And if he's not, there's no reason to have him on your team for a guy who's only going to play 3-4 days a week tops now. So I would drop Contreras. And if Darno goes down with injury or something else happens and he's going to get an everyday job, then you go out there and definitely pick him up. The next guy is Eric Hosmer of the San Diego Padres. So Hosmer, he got off to a white-hot start the first month to 5 weeks of the season, but he's fizzled out quickly now in the last month of the season. Here's Hosmer on the season: 4 home runs, 25 RBI, 17 runs scored, 296 average, and a 357 on base. The Padres, they were going to look to trade Hosmer right before the season, but a couple trades just didn't go through. And over the last month here, he's shown nothing for fantasy owners. A 230 average with only a 267 on base with a homer and 7 RBI, so that's not going to get the job done. He's still owned in 62% of fantasy leagues, but he's a guy that's droppable, I think. I think we got the most out of Hosmer early in the season, and now he's back to form where he's pretty much not doing anything. The last few games for him: May 30th at the Cardinals, 0 for 5. May 31st, he didn't play. June 1st at St. Louis, 0 for 4. June 2nd at the Brewers, 1 for 5 with a rib. June 3rd at the Brewers, 1 for 5. June 5th at Milwaukee, 1 for 5. And June 6th versus the Mets, 1 for 4 in that one. So right here, Eric Hosmer, his numbers have gone down a lot, like I mentioned. He's not driving in runs. He's not hitting for power. And right now, he's a guy that's not really going to be useful in fantasy if he's not doing anything good in those 3 big categories. I would drop Hosmer this week in the 5th and final hitter. I look to drop this week Gavin Lux of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Lux, he was supposed to be a big-time prospect for this Dodger team and the next big hitter for fantasy baseball, but that obviously hasn't been the case on the season. Only 1 home run, 12 RBIs, 30 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 261 average, and a 345 on base. So another guy here who's not showing power. He's not driving in runs. I know the versatility is good, qualifying at second, short, and outfield, but that versatility means nothing, in my opinion, if you can't hit or at least drive in runs and show power. And over the last month here, he hasn't hit a home run. 6 RBIs with a 253 average. So right now, I would cut Lux loose. And like I mentioned, he's pretty much a singles hitter and not doing anything else. Even though he's in a great Los Angeles Dodger lineup here, he still hasn't done anything. May 31st versus Pittsburgh, 0 for 3 with a stolen base. June 1st versus Pittsburgh, 2 for 3 with a run. June 2nd versus the Mets, 2 for 3. June 3rd versus the Mets, 0 for 3. June 4th versus the Mets, 0 for 3 with a run. And June 5th versus the Mets, 0 for 4. So right here, he's doing nothing. His Lux. I know he was a big-time prospect, but he definitely could be a bust right now here. And I would drop him. And that's a few hitters I'd look to drop here in Week 9 of the fantasy baseball season.